Hi there, my name is Emily Dufresne and I am a higher education champion at Take Your Place. Today I will be talking to you about how to choose the right degree provider for you. Do you want to stay closer to home or move farther afield? Would you prefer to study at a university or further education college? What provider will have the best facilities for your interests? These are just some of the questions you might be asking yourself when considering which higher education provider to choose. In this session, we will be looking at these questions and more so that you can prepare yourself for the decisions you will have to make in your future and hopefully make it easier to start your research. Grab a notepad and pen or open a document so that you can take notes as we go through each one. That way, at the end of this session, you can read through what you've written and hopefully have more of an idea of where to start researching and some of the things you are looking for in a higher education provider. Here are the main topics we will be looking at today. Further education college or university, which might suit you best? Where do you want to study? If you want to go to a university, would you rather study at a campus or city university? What facilities are there? Do you need to think about rankings? What types of visits are there and how to make the most out of them? First up, we will be discussing the differences between studying for a degree at a further education college and at a university. Firstly, let's think a bit about the differences between each one. Going to a further education college to study a degree might allow you to stay closer to home rather than having to move away in order to attend a university. Often, studying a degree at a further education college means you will have smaller class sizes than those you might find at a university. The further education college site may also be smaller than a university campus. If you feel you learn better in a smaller group, then this may be a good option to look into. Further education colleges might also allow you to study in a more flexible way, even more flexible than studying part-time at a university. So, if you have other commitments or you want to work alongside studying, this might be a good option for you. Studying at a further education college will mean you are studying with all age groups, from 16-year-olds working towards apprenticeship qualifications to mature students undertaking a degree. This means you will be able to interact with a wide range of people studying all different types of qualifications. University, on the other hand, might be a very different experience. Depending on your degree choice, universities may have more specialised facilities for your course, and often lead the way with academic research. So if there is something specific you wish to study, or specific equipment you want to use to do your course, make sure the provider, whether this is a further education college or university, has those available to you. Universities tend to be larger in scale than further education colleges, with more students on campus. This means that class sizes tend to be larger, but does mean there are more people to interact with and often more social events happening across the university. If you are a sociable person who likes to feel part of a larger community, then maybe university would be the better choice for you. One of the major differences between universities and further education colleges is the range of courses. Often, further education colleges will have a smaller range of degree choices and potentially more generalised options as well. However, this is not always the case. If you are thinking of attending a further education college to study for a degree, it might be best to see what their course options are. If you are looking for a very specific subject, it may be best to search on the UCAS Course Finder website to see where you can study that particular subject. Next up, we are going to be looking at where you might like to study. There are over 350 education providers in the UK alone, and hundreds more across the world. This might make it feel like a daunting task when looking for somewhere to do a degree. Sometimes thinking about the location of a provider might help you to make your decision. Here we have a few questions you can ask yourself which might make it a bit easier to narrow down. Firstly, do you want to stay close to home or move farther away? If you know you would rather stay closer to home, you can look in your local area or a 1 hour's journey away, for example, and see what university and further education providers you could go to. Secondly, do you care how long it will take you to get home during the holidays and weekend, for example? If you only want to be a maximum of a 3-hour drive or train ride away from home, this also might help to narrow down your search for a higher education provider. In a similar way, you might also want to look at the journeys you will have to make. Whether this is your daily journey between your main home and your higher education provider, or the journey you might make during school holidays to visit your family and friends, this might influence your decision. How direct are public transport links? Could you get a coach or bus? How much will it cost you to get home? Of course, if you don't mind travelling and want to move as far away as possible, this might not be a contributing factor for you. But if you think you might want to visit home more often, then this might be something to look at to help you decide. The last question we have suggested here is, do you prefer city or countryside? This is a question that will go hand in hand with our next section, deciding between a city or campus university, but it is good to think about here as well. If you like to be able to get into the countryside or have passions such as hiking, surfing, cycling, rock climbing, etc., then looking for a higher education provider that is close to an area that will let you do these activities would be a good place to start, and even better if the university has a society linked to those interests. Hopefully, some of these questions will have got you thinking about your preferences and thoughts about where you might want to study. Now we will go on to look at the difference between campus universities and city universities. If you want to attend a university to study, then there are a few more decisions you may have to make. One of these is whether you would like to study at a campus university or a city university. Firstly, what are campus and city universities? Well, traditional campus universities usually have all their buildings in one place. This place is called the campus. These universities tend to be farther away from the city or town centre, so you may have to travel to get to the hustle and bustle of the nearest town. These universities may also have more campuses in different areas spread across several different places. City universities can either have a campus in the centre of a town or city, or have their buildings spread out across the city. This means you may have to walk from your accommodation to your classes, for example. It also means that as a student, you often share the university spaces with people outside of the organisation. On the next slide, I will go through some details about both campus and city universities. As I am going through them, why not write a pros and cons list for both? So, let's take a closer look at each one. First up, we have campus universities. On a campus university, all of the university facilities will most likely be close by, within walking distance of each other. Also, because the campus is often only frequented by students and academics, campus universities often have a great sense of community, with lots of activities going on around the campus to get involved in as a student body. Campus universities also tend to be situated away from the city centre, so you may need to take a bus or cycle to the nearest town. But at the same time, it is probably closer to the countryside and will feel quieter and less populated than a city university. Moving on to city universities, as they can be spread across a city, you may have to travel between different buildings for different things. For example, you may have a seminar in one building and then have to walk or take a bus, for example, to the library to study afterwards. In a city university, the students are more a part of the hustle and bustle of city life and may find it easier to take part in activities or work outside of the university. Being in a central position also means you are more likely to be closer to main transport links, such as train station and bus and coach stations. Of course, these are generalisations, and all universities are different depending on their location and size, amongst other things. And if you can, I would always recommend visiting the providers you are thinking of applying to, in order to get a feel for both the provider and the surrounding area, even if this is virtually. I will be talking more about this at the end of the presentation, but please do bear this in mind when doing your research. We will now be moving on to think about facilities. We will focus on three main types of facilities: accommodation, research, and student services. If you go to university, you will most likely live in university accommodation during your first year of study, so it's important to know about the different accommodation options open to you. Universities often have lots of different types of accommodation, and they all cost different amounts depending on whether you have a shared bathroom or ensuite, catered or self-catered accommodation, a single or double bed, and how many other people you live with, amongst many other things. It is a good idea to look at what options you have in your price range and to see what is available to you at different universities. Usually, after your first year of study, you will have to move out of university accommodation and rent student accommodation in the surrounding area. Because of this, it is also a good idea to look into average rent prices in the area, so you are prepared for the future, as you may find this influences your decisions earlier on. Research facilities may also play a big part in choosing a higher education provider. Research facilities are most likely to be linked to your subject or course, so it can be a good idea to think not only about your course and what facilities would be useful for you to get the most out of your degree, but also to think about specific areas you would like to explore more during your course. Obvious facilities include libraries and study spaces, but university facilities can also be even more specific. For example, if you study literature, does the provider have a special collection with rare texts you are interested in studying? If you're studying science or psychology, are there any labs that specialise in your chosen area, for example, a sleep lab? If you are studying astronomy or physics, are there any observatories or telescopes? These are just some examples, but hopefully it has got you thinking about your interests and how you would like to utilise the research facilities at a higher education provider. Most faculty pages on a provider's website will let you know about the most up-to-date work and research they are undergoing, so be sure to do your research to find out all the opportunities that might be open to you. If there is something you can't find out while researching prospectuses, websites, and virtual tours, be sure to note down any questions you have and make sure you either ask them at an open day or contact the admissions or recruitment team to get them answered. It is also important to remember that attending a higher education provider isn't all about studying. It's also about trying new things, meeting new people, and broadening your horizons. All higher education providers will also have social facilities to help you do this. These might include cafes, bars, and restaurants, and also theatres, art galleries, and music halls. They may also have state-of-the-art sports facilities and teams which you can get involved in, as well as societies which will let you pursue your extracurricular interests. This means another way to help you research and choose a higher education provider is to think about your non-academic interests, or even things you would like to try out, and see which institutions will allow you to pursue those interests and passions. Lastly, we have student services. All universities will have services similar to these. Careers and employability for help with everything from part-time jobs to CVs, skills, and even jobs after university. Student living support for help with all things accommodation and student life, including well-being and mental health. Disability support for help with regard to any disability and long-term physical or mental health conditions. Well-being and mental health support for help with emotional, psychological, and social well-being. All of these services are free and will offer you help in lots of different ways, including one-to-one support, workshops, professional advisors, and online resources. Researching the student services at some of the providers you are interested in might help you to see what support may be available to you. We have also added some helpful questions on the right-hand side to think about while researching. For example, can you find examples of students sharing their experiences with the support services available at the provider? Can you find out how the university has handled challenging times? This might be as simple as seeing how the university handled the pandemic. How did they help their students? How did students studying there find this experience? What are the university's policies on diversity, representation, and discrimination? Finding out these things might help you to make a decision when researching for providers. Now we will discuss whether you need to think about university rankings when choosing a university. Looking at university rankings can be helpful, but shouldn't completely influence your decision. They allow you to look at the top universities in the country overall and also by subject. On the links provided, you can also see how universities are ranked for student satisfaction. So, if you have a few universities in mind which you are thinking of applying to, it can be a good way to help you to see which of them might be the best in your subject, for example. University rankings do change year to year, so this shouldn't be a deciding factor. but it may be something which can help to influence or reinforce a decision. Saying this, I would always recommend taking virtual tours and visiting providers at open days in order to get the best feel for them. Just because one university has a higher ranking doesn't mean that it will be more suited to you. This leads me on very nicely to our final section. What types of visits are there? There are lots of different options open to you to experience the providers you are thinking of applying to, so we thought we would take the time to talk through them and how to make the most of them as well. The 3 types of visits you might attend are virtual tours and open days, in-person open days, and applicant days. Virtual tours and open days are, as the name suggests, things you can attend online. Virtual tours are usually accessible all the time and will show you around the provider. They may include videos and examples of student experience, as well as giving you a 360-degree view of the various buildings. Virtual open days, on the other hand, may require you to sign up or book a place on them, and may be on a set day. Different providers may all run differently, so make sure you check the itinerary and know which seminars, lectures, and workshops you want to attend. At a virtual open day, you should also be able to live chat with current students and faculty staff to ask any questions you may have. Much like an in-person open day, you should also be able to get a feel for the surrounding area, the facilities, and the courses you are interested in. One of the best things about virtual tours and open days is that it allows you to experience providers which you might not otherwise have been able to visit, even ones very far away. In-person open days are open to all students interested in studying any course at that provider. These are the best way to get a feel for a place and the facilities, so if you can go on them, we would definitely recommend them. It will allow you to go on accommodation tours, visit the faculty you are thinking of applying to, talk to student ambassadors and ask them any questions you have. There will also be talks and lectures to give you more in-depth information about the providers and the course you want to apply for. And again, you will be able to ask academic staff any questions you have to make sure the course is right for you. Perhaps one of the visits you may not have heard of are applicant days. These are offered to students who have applied to that institution. This means you have finished your UCAS application and sent it off to your 5 choices. Sometimes these providers will contact you and invite you to an applicant day. On an applicant day, you will get a more in-depth view of the course you have applied for. By this time, it may be clearer to you what you are looking for in a course, and you may have thought of more questions you would like to ask or things you would like to experience. Applicant days are perfect for this, as they usually contain taster workshops and closer one-to-one conversations with faculty staff. It will also give you another chance to get a feel for the provider and what your student life might be like, which might help you to narrow down your 5 choices to just your firm and insurance choice. So, how can you make the most out of these opportunities? Well, we have 2 top tips. Number 1, prepare before you attend, and number 2, pay attention and get involved. Always double check what the itinerary for the day is, and make sure you have a plan so that you can get the most out of whichever type of visit you are attending. Think about any questions you want to ask and have them written down. Bring a notepad and pen to take down any important information you find out and make note of any more questions you think of during talks. Make sure to get involved in any of the activities going on and make sure to speak up and ask all the questions you have. I know it can be scary to do this, but the chances are that other people are probably wondering the same things. By getting involved, it will also allow you to get a really good feel for the university or further education college and make sure it's right for you. We hope you found this presentation helpful, and hopefully you now have more of an idea of what sort of provider you may want to study at. And if you are still feeling overwhelmed by the task in front of you, hopefully we have given you the tools and questions to think about, which should help you narrow down your search. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@takeyourplace.ac.uk, or you can visit our website, takeyourplace.ac.uk, to find lots of resources on how to make your next steps. You can also follow us on Twitter @takeyourplacehe to get all the latest information on what we are up to. Thank you for listening and good luck with your next steps.